And please be seated, everyone. Hello. Welcome, families, friends, faculty. I'm Barbara Henderson. I'm the interim director of the Doctoral Program in Educational Leadership here at San Francisco State University. It's wonderful to have all of you here today to celebrate and to recognize our 2019 graduates of the San Francisco State Doctoral Program in Educational Leadership. This intensive program allows working professionals to complete a doctoral degree in just less than 3 years. Students are enrolled full-time in 9 units of coursework each semester. They take a full course load for the first 6 semesters and then focus on their dissertation for the final 2. Along the way, these students have conquered 3 milestones. In the first year, they completed their qualifying exams. At the end of the second year, they defended their proposals. And now, as they complete their dissertations, they will do a defense, an oral defense of the dissertation as well. Each of these milestones is significant and rigorous and provides a stepping stone to the degree at a higher level of complexity at each level. Each student must meet the demands, but they also experience these challenges together. That's because our program is run as a cohort, which means that these students have taken their courses all together, and they have traversed these milestones at about the same time as well. Their work together as a community of scholar activists becomes a defining part of their experience in this program. And I'm sure that many of you know some of the others who are being recognized today for their graduation because the closeness that has developed among these students. Thank you as well to the doctoral faculty for your support. Some of you are here in the front row. You've seen these students along their journey, and we will see some of you later step on the stage to congratulate the students whose committees you chaired. I also want to thank our graduate coordinator, Dr. Andrea Goldfine, who was up here on stage earlier. You saw her there. She's in the back. Thank you for all you do and have done to support these students in our program over the years. Thanks as well for all you did to help to organize this event. Thanks also to Fanita Yun, our academic office coordinator. I'm not sure where she is, but Fanita handles just about everything. She does the hiring and the reimbursements, and she manages our budget and 100 other things. And she also contributed mightily to the organization and running of today's event. Thanks as well to the team led by Art Wong in the back who are doing the live streaming, as well as the audio and the photography for today. The live stream will be archived in our EDD YouTube channel, which will be linked to our website. So you can watch us do this many times over if you want. I now want to turn to acknowledge the place of this group of students and where they hold in our program. They were admitted in fall of 2016, and they're now graduating in spring 2019, which makes them the 10th set of alumni for this program. We admitted our very first cohort in fall 2007, and these students graduated in spring 2010. That group was a similar size to this cohort, and notably was a cohort that includes several high-profile educational leaders. Dr. Alexis Montevirgin was just appointed the president of Pierce College, a community college in Southern California. Dr. Deborah Budd is the recently retired president of Evergreen Community College in San Jose, and Dr. Vincent Matthews is the superintendent of San Francisco Unified School District. And Vince is here. We expect no less from this amazing group of graduates. Each of you will find your own way to greatness and to impact and to influence in your communities, in institutions, according to your talents, your expertise, and your passions. Congratulations, graduates. Today's program is all about our graduates. Dean Cynthia Grunzig of the Graduate College of Education is here to offer her congratulations and good wishes. And then University Dean of Graduate Studies, Dr. Sophie Clavier, is here to celebrate this milestone with our new alumni and for our program. Dr. Jamal Cooks, Dean of Language Arts at Chabot College and former professor of secondary education and former associate director of this very program, will provide our keynote speech. Dr. Cooks is the dissertation chair for 4 members of this graduating cohort, as well as sitting on the committee for a 5th. Then we turn to our students. I will recognize our distinguished student, Dr. Landon Hill, and then 5 students who have been elected by our 2019 cohort will speak on behalf of the group, each of them briefly introducing the person who speaks after. 5, right? Yes. We will then honor each of our graduates. The student's committee chair or committee member will say a few words about their student, and then we'll honor them with the doctoral cowl that each of them came in holding. After our recessional, there will be some lunch available, and the graduates will go. It looks like the weather is cooperating, so we'll go outside for outside photographs. We'll be out in the courtyard for group photographs and photographs with faculty, and the lunch will be out at that point. And save us some, if you could, because we'll be back to celebrate with you after we're done with our photographs. We are so happy to have all of you here today for this recognition ceremony and celebration. Congratulations again, 2019 graduates. Congratulations to these new doctors. I will now introduce Dr. Cynthia Grunzig, Dean of the Graduate College of Education. Dean Grunzig is just finishing her first year here at the college, and I greatly appreciate her support. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Good morning, everyone. I echo Dr. Henderson's comments. It is really a joy to see you all here and to especially see you sitting here, our new colleagues, new doctors. Dr. Henderson, Dean Clavier, Dean Cooks, distinguished faculty, staff, families, and candidates. On behalf of the faculty and the staff of the Graduate College of Education, welcome to this wonderful ceremony. Today, the EDD program is celebrating the completion and success of our own graduates, a chance to honor you who have worked so hard, to recognize all those who have supported and encouraged you, and to express our delight and pride in turning out such a remarkable group of professionals and leaders. I want to talk about what sets you apart and what keeps you connected. First, I want to acknowledge what sets you apart as new doctors of education. You have taken the time in your life to closely study education systems, practices, histories, theories, and this is something that very few have done. You've conducted rigorous research on significant educational issues and examined them from your unique perspectives and lived experiences, as well as in the context of scholarly and professional literature. Your work evidences originality, critical and independent thinking, and methods of study appropriate to your research problems. And you've posed questions that push us to action and that uncover inequities and injustices that must be seen, heard, and changed. What also sets you apart is that you are systems leaders with a breadth of experience and insight combined with knowledge of structures and policies that will allow you to take on the challenges of education systems in important ways. With your EDD, you'll advance projects and changes that will impact students and families for good and will improve opportunities for all. And what sets you apart is that you are a graduate of a California State University, the largest and most distinguished higher education system in the nation. The CSU has only been authorized to offer education doctorates since 2006. At that time, the legislature recognized the urgent need for well-prepared administrators to lead public schools and community college reform efforts. There are now 15 EDD programs in the CSU, and ours here at SF State was one of the first to be established, with the clear focus of equipping talented educators to lead institutions with expertise and effectiveness. From only 142 enrolled statewide in 2007 and 8, the first year of the CSU in the state, there were 914 enrolled across the state in 2017 and 18. With a 93% completion rate and 80% of graduates promoted during or after earning their doctorates, the CSU's EDD programs are among the most successful in the nation, and your impact as a graduate of SF State's EDD program will be notable. Now let me talk about what keeps you connected. The network you've built here at SF State, the friends and colleagues you've made, will keep you connected for years to come. These are people you'll call on when you need ideas or help, get together with for celebrations, happy hour, sit on each other's advisory boards. It's more than a network, though. It's also a professional community of like-minded peers. And you'll find that this network can support critical professional development, especially when you're not finding it in your own settings. The other thing that keeps you connected is all of us, your faculty, your department staff, your college administrators. As long as we're all working here, we'll be here for you. And you're our colleagues now, and we'll count on you to join us in this field of work and study. Come back to see us. Email us with ideas and questions. Invite us out to your school events and your college events. Come join us as colleagues. We're always building our pool of professors, instructors, and advisors. Finally, what keeps you connected is the belief we all share that every child matters deeply, that we are responsible for their learning, and that the best way to make a difference in their lives is to work together as educators to create inclusive schools and community colleges where our students are known, loved, challenged, supported, and successful. We are so proud of you and of what sets you apart and what keeps you connected, and we are excited to launch you out into the world where you'll shine. Thank you.
Dean Sophie Clavier of Graduate Education.
Well, thank you for having me. Dear students, esteemed colleagues, faculty, all of you families and friends. It is really my pleasure and my privilege to greet you on behalf of the entire university, on behalf of the president and the provost, and the Academic Affairs Council. And first, of course, let me congratulate you. Actually, I'm sure it's a great day for you when everybody that you meet say congratulations, right? It's probably the last day that it will happen this way, but it's always nice. But I join into that. I really applaud you for your commitment to reaching, higher for the education and the training that you need. But second, and really more importantly, I would like to thank you all of you. I would like to thank you for entrusting us with your higher education. Including today, we've graduated in the EDD program at SF State about 130, 135 students. And we really have become, thanks to all that precede you and now all of you, a major civic force in San Francisco to advance both the university and the region. And of course, we all hope that you've learned from us. We always hope that as faculty that you learn a little bit of something from us. But mostly, we know that we have learned from you. We have learned from each and every one of you, from your ideas, from your enthusiasm for learning, for your individual and collective and often vocal commitment to social justice, to inclusion, to equity. Your refusal to accept the status quo have been and will continue to be an inspiration to me and to all of us to thrive, to do better. And I personally thank you for it. Thank you also for the work that you've been doing and that you will continue to do. Your newly acquired doctorate is made of two parts, education and leadership. There is no better work and no better career than education. I can tell you, I've been doing it for 30 years, and I can honestly say that I really have loved my job every single day, I mean, almost. But definitely today, a day like today is definitely one that you really cherish. Thank you also for being the future leaders, the second part of that doctorate, for having a vision, for showing the ability to motivate and to inspire others to join into that vision, for having the willingness to take risks, and mostly for having the empathy without which leading would only be top-down directing. So I thank you for that. And finally, as the ceremony goes on, you will receive the doctorate hood that will complete your regalia. And which I don't wear very well, actually. But as you know, the origins of the regalia we're wearing today dates back to the beginning of the universities in Europe in the Middle Ages. And at that time, scholars usually also took clergy vows, ecclesiastic vows, and their heads were tonsured, like that of the clergy. And so they wore long gowns, probably to keep warm, which in San Francisco can also be very useful. But hoods and later skull caps were worn to cover the shaved part, the tonsure. And nowadays, the hood is starting to symbolize the culmination of graduate studies and the degrees recipients transition from student to colleague. So it is my great pleasure, my great privilege, my great honor to close my remarks by greeting you now, no longer as students, but as bona fide colleagues. Congratulations.
I now want to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Jamal Cooks.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I am very, very excited to be here. And I'm going to not go very long because I know at these kinds of events, the keynote speaker talks and everyone gets to a point of wanting to eat and leave and take pictures, and so I'm not going to be very long. But I am going, this is a homecoming for me. I spent 18 years here at San Francisco State as a professor, tenured professor, and then a full professor here in secondary education, focusing on language literacy and culture. And so because of that, I'm going to take a little bit of liberty to take a picture of the group. Can I get Charlie? Because this is my crew right here. This group, I was fortunate enough to work with the first class of the program, and Stephanie and I co-taught that class, 12, 13 years ago, and so I've been able to see every cohort go through, with the exception of one, when I was a visiting professor at Mills College. But this group is very, very special to me. And so I'll share some comments about each one of them and also as a group a little later. This morning, whenever you're doing a keynote, you're trying to figure out what's the intro, what's the out, what's the middle. So I had these things I wanted to say, but I was trying to figure out how to frame it. And so what's very interesting is that because this is a very family-oriented event, because this is talking about growth and moving forward, I'm going to use some words from my son to frame the conversation today. I have an 11-year-old daughter who is called Pumpkin, and no, that's her real name. And I have a 7-year-old son named Cameron. And I would often share stories about my children in the class, but particularly Cameron, because early on, Cameron had issues with playing in the sandbox with others. Let's just say that, right? So so we've had lots of conversations about things he should do and things he shouldn't do. And so this morning I said, hey, Cam, what kind of tie should I wear? He said, oh, well, Daddy, pick this tie. I said, okay, well, why? He said, I think it'll look really good. Okay, thanks, Cam. So then I pulled the robe out, and he's like, Daddy, what is that? I said, well, this is for, Daddy's going to go and help celebrate and graduating doctors. He was like, well, I know you've been a doctor since I was born, so you should have fun. Okay, thanks, Cam. I said, which I don't even know what that means, right? And so then, and then I said, Cam, well, I'm going to talk to these graduates. I'm going to talk to a bunch of people. You know, what should I tell them make good people? Like, what are just some things you should do to be a good person? And so he thought about it for a minute. He said, well, will you tell them if I tell you, will you tell them? I said, yeah, Cam, I'll tell them. He said, well, you have to treat people like you want to be treated. You have to keep your hands to yourself and don't hit people. And finally, you have to work hard so you get good grades. So I'm going to use these 3 pieces to not talk about just being good people, but to be great educational leaders, because that's what we're here for today. That's the program that you all signed up for. That's what the classes were for. That's what the conversations were for you to not be just good or okay educational leaders, but to be great educational leaders. And so treat people like you want to be treated. When I moved from San Francisco State to become the Dean of Language Arts, I remember my interview very distinctly. And so they ask you things about, well, what do you know about budgets? You know, I'm like, besides mine being negative sometimes, right? But like, besides, what do you know about budgets? Okay, what do you know about shared governance? They ask you questions about, well, how do you deal with challenging faculty and staff? You see some of the folks that are in these, but they're like, yep, that's what they have, right? What they didn't ask me was, how do you help adults manage their emotions? That wasn't on the job description, right? And so I'll say a little bit more about that. What ends up happening is that as educational leaders, there's this checklist of stuff that you're supposed to be able to do. But I found that the biggest thing and the biggest challenge and the biggest positive is how you build positive relationships with everybody, everyone, all the way from the janitor, the administrative assistants, right? The people that some people walk by and don't even talk to. Those people are just as important in the whole functioning of what you are going to do and what you currently do than the president and the vice presidents. Right? When you're talking about building relationships, you're talking about building relationships with your faculty, right? You can't make grown folks who pay mortgages do anything. You can't make anyone do anything, right? But how you can get them to do things is by building a positive relationship. Find out about their family. Find out about what they do when they're not at the job. Find out what's their interest, right? Build a positive relationship with them, and when you do that, then people will want to do things for you. Not you have to make them, they'll want to do those things, right? So when you talk about building relationships, I'm going to also say that at Chabot, we have about 15,000 students. We have the language arts division that I'm over. We have 30 full-timers, and I have about 80 part-timers, part-time faculty. So it's our president usually jokes with us and says that we run a small liberal arts college because at any given point with English, world language, ESL, and American Sign Language, there's usually about 6,000 students that are enrolled in classes that are in our division. So there's a lot of management, but there's a lot of relationship building, right? And so when you're talking about building relationships, you have to build relationships with your faculty or the people that work with or for you. You have to build those relationships. And sometimes those are going to be very, very good, positive relationships. Other times, there's going to be some challenges. And I think that takes me to my second one of keep your hands to yourself and don't hit anybody. Everything is not going to go the way it is planned. Let me be clear. As an educational leader, every single day for the last 15 months on my job, I make sure that before I leave, I have no phone messages and no emails. Like before I walk out the office. Sometimes that's 3, sometimes that's 4, sometimes that's 5, sometimes that's 6, right? Because I want to leave that at the job. And I will tell you that there are times when I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, because I wake up at 4 to work out, to have my time, to then get my kids and family together, to drop the kids off at school. They should be at work. Go to, pay their own tuition, to go to school, and then I'm at work. And once I get to work, it is meeting, people. I need, money. This is every single day, right? So when I talk about this idea about keep your hands to yourself and don't hit people, there are going to be moments when you have to realize I can't get up and I can't get too down. I can't get too upset and I can't get too happy. Are you all with me, right? There are going to be times when things are not going to go according to plan. And as the educational leader, what we have to also remember is that we are a mirror. We set the tone in our division. We set the tone with the people that we work with. So if you are someone, or I'll back up, if you have a group of folks that work with you or for you that you think are not doing things the way you want them to do, I'm going to say you got to look in the mirror. Because they may be doing what you're doing. So if you want that culture to change, if you want those actions to shift, we got to start with us, right? As one of my assistant coaches always says, fish heads rocks from the head, not from the tail. Yeah, y'all, some of y'all heard that, right? So the idea becomes about, as an educational leader, you setting the tone for your folks, for the division, for the group, and people will follow that, right? And you want to present and create the kind of environment that they want to be a part of, right? I think finally, work hard and you will get good grades. Yeah, it depends on what the grade is, right? It depends on what you're calling the test. Sometimes as an educational leader, the test is supposed to be based on statistics. Right, in community college, there's this big thing about throughput and persistence and who transfers, right? Like those are some measures, those are some markers, right? There are some other markers in terms of how many faculty you've retained, how diverse your faculty is, right? That's another kind of a measure. But I really think that the biggest measure about getting the good grades has to always do with the students. It has to do with the students. So whether you're going to be a dean of a community college, whether you're going to be an executive director of your own companies, if you're working with kids and with families and communities, whatever that might be, the participants, the constituents, that's your grade. All the other stuff, it counts, but what counts most are the people that you got into this for, right? So the idea of treating people like you want to be treated, keeping your hands to yourself, and don't hit people because you will get sued, and work hard and you will get good grades. I think if you keep those things in mind, those are the things that make a great educational leader. And I think in closing, the one thing I used to always say to the class was talking about, as an educational leader, we also have to be instructional leaders. Don't get so far away from the curriculum and what's going on that you lose touch. Don't lose touch. Don't lose touch with being someone that builds positive relationships. Don't lose touch with being someone that knows you're an expert in all of your different fields, right? You want to make sure you stay connected to students, to family, and again, why you're even doing this, right? So I think in closing, education deserves not just okay educational leaders. We have to be great. There are enough okay people, okay educators that are in our systems. There are enough just average people just doing things to do things. We have to be great. And if we start that greatness here with this cohort and continue with the past cohorts that have come out of this program, then I feel very comfortable and confident about the future of our educational system. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cooks. I now want to make an acknowledgement of our distinguished student. If Dr. Landon Hill could step up here and just, if you could just stand for your acknowledgement. So we'll hood you in a moment, but just an additional. Dr. Landon Hill is this year's Distinguished Student for a Doctoral Program in Educational Leadership. The Distinguished Student is awarded from the university, and it's a university-level honor. Each of the graduate programs is given just one, and the faculty is given the responsibility to select one student to recognize. The award is based on GPA, the dissertation, and qualities of leadership and advocacy while within the program. Dr. Hill successfully defended his dissertation focused on African American Vernacular English, or AAVE, and how a language arts program at the middle school level that draws upon AAVE affected the literacy and academic achievement of the students involved. Dr. Hill is also, he became a new father while in the program, and he was hired as an adjunct faculty teaching courses in the Department of Secondary Education. Congratulations, Dr. Hill, for being awarded this honor. We turn now to our cohort speakers. Our first speaker will be Dr. Charles Lavon Cole III.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank y'all for the folks that drove, and I know the traffic was kind of crazy, so thank you for getting here. I know some of y'all probably had some anxiety around that, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna miss it. So thank you for being here, and I'm sure your families appreciate you coming. So I'm part of the largest Black cohort in the history of this doctoral program, ever. And what I wanna say about that is that if you've done any type of formal education, whether it's undergrad, graduate, what you learn very quickly is that the academy doesn't love us. And what I mean by that is, we just celebrate the 65th anniversary of Brown versus Board this past weekend, and in the most liberal state, in the richest country on the face of the planet, only 2 out of 10 Black kids can read. That's where we live right now. Like, that's not 60 years ago, that's today. You see, often the academic data about Black folks that grew up like me paints us as victims of these sad cases. Is usually like a woe is me type situation, and you know, the teaching force in America is 80% white, mostly women. And the message is like, you gotta go out and save these kids because they doing so poorly. So I wanted to kind of change that, and I wanted to have things look a little bit different. And when I started the program, I was very clear, right? I wasn't coming to make friends or to bake pies, right? Like, I was coming on a mission. And I didn't just carry myself in here. I carried Chicago, where I was born, Kentucky, where I lived, and Oakland, where I grew up, and the shelters that I was raised in. So I met somebody while I was here, Dr. Marilyn Jones, and her and I kind of adopted each other throughout this process. And we pushed each other in our work to go really deep. And we had very, very personal dissertations that gave us the opportunity to be selfish and to actually be the one studying us, as opposed to being the lab rats with white folks in coats looking at you and studying you. And so I looked at Black men that came from incredibly rough circumstances, basically the crack epidemic, that overcame to reach the highest levels of attainment. So in my study, I had Black kids that grew up extremely impacted by the crack epidemic that now are all doctors themselves. And for the study, you have to change the names of your study subjects to protect their identity. So I wanted to make it really real for folks, and the pseudonyms that I chose were from my close friends and family, Donald, DeMarcus, and my cousin Antoine. So now you have these 3 Black men that now are doctors, and these 3 pseudonyms that I used, and those names are real names, and 2 of those folks were murdered, and one of those, my cousin, is a predicate felon. And my message that I wanted to really push out is that these 6 men were 96% similar. They grew up in the same places, even though it was all over the country. They experienced the same things, but there was a 4% difference, give or take, that led half of them to death and half of them to represent only less than 3% of the entire world that has doctorate degrees. So my message to the program and programs like this, and whoever ends up seeing this video, is that you gotta be bold and you gotta be good. What I mean by that is, for the folks that were hooded in this program yesterday, that's getting hooded today and now will be hooded in the future, oftentimes we'll be the thing in the middle that helps determine what that 4% variance is. And are you leading folks to death or are you leading them to life? So I wanna leave you all with this. Normally when you close your eyes and envision a doctor, there's a prototype that may pop in your head. Well, sometimes we wear Jordans, sometimes we wear gold fronts, sometimes we come from shelters, sometimes we had guns in our cars under our laps, sometimes we've had friends that have been shot and some of them have been killed, and sometimes they have botched accents from Chicago, Kentucky, and Oakland. But I want to tell you, this is what a doctor both looks like and sounds like. Thank you very much. I want to welcome Dr. Tabitha Conaway.
Hello. If you're wondering why this little bit of joy is up here with me, my cohort knows I started the program with her. In fact, the first day of class, Dr. Bob came up to me, obviously 6 months pregnant, and pulls me aside and says, "Are you gonna make it through the semester?" I was like, I think she's agreeable. And I did. I didn't really know what I was gonna say when I got up here, and I'm much more emotional than I thought. When I started the program, the idea of a cohort wasn't appealing to me. Dr. Cole said he wasn't here to make friends or bake pie. I'm for baking pie, but I didn't necessarily understand the value of a cohort as I do today. And I think the greatest lessons I learned were from the cohort. I learned that education by itself is not the answer. I learned that in order to start addressing systemic racism in our institutions, like education, you cannot solely understand the premise of education and how it works. Because I'll tell you, when I started this program, I knew how to play education. I knew how to follow the rules. I knew what the rules meant. But that's not enough. It's not enough to make change in our institutions that are not teaching students of color how to read. It is not enough. Education is not enough within the systems that push students into prisons. But I'll tell you what I learned from this cohort is that collectively we have power. Collectively, my cohort has taught me, sometimes to the dismay of the program, that our voices matter. Many times I have went on break from classes and called Dr. Cooks, because if we were gonna be tattled on as a cohort, I figured we might as well get the story straight. But I learned from my cohort that when one of us feels that something's not right. When one of us feels that they are being pushed aside, when one of us stands up and says, this literature is too depressing, and it's not true, that we have to support them, that it is through our collective unification that we are able to start to push back on electricity, but on racism. And so I just want to thank my cohort for all of the time that we've spent together and all of the things I've learned from you. And I want to thank you. I would also like to introduce Dr. Landon Hill.
All right. Very similar to Tabitha, I don't really have anything formally prepared. I have to first, though, as always, first acknowledge God and Christ. I don't know what everybody else's beliefs are, but I wouldn't be here without him. And so I need to just at least state that and say that. I also would not be here at all without the help and support of my family. My wife is here. My daughter, who gives me an extra level of motivation that I never would have imagined. My parents are here. My brother, everybody from all the family from Richmond. My wife's family is here to support. I have an amazing support system that I'm extremely blessed to have, and I cannot thank them enough. Dr. Jamal Cooks, who you all heard from, he actually, before I even was getting into the doctoral program, when I was looking at getting a master's degree, I got on the phone with him after years of not speaking. We had gone to church together for a while, and he has been a mentor since then, just off the strength. And so I had to definitely appreciate him and all his mentorship. Yeah, we clap it up. So with that said, forgive me if I'm a little bit, I'm not gonna ramble, but if I'm jumping all over the place, but I think it's fitting to have spoken after Charles and Tabitha already. I think only one other person I should have gone behind, because the dynamics of our cohort typically worked out this way. I tend to often be told that my temperament is a little bit more even-keeled, right? And so for me, I tend to sit back and be able to analyze things that are going on. And although that can a lot of times be to my benefit, for others, like Charles, like Tabitha, like Marilyn, when they're who's going to be coming up in a minute, when they're talking about pushing against a lot of these issues that we're experiencing, they would kind of jump out there first for our cohort and kind of set the tone. And I was, because of just kind of who I am and how I am, I was able to kind of analyze and then either make decisions or state things in a way that made sense to me after kind of hearing everything. But as you all heard, my dissertation, I wasn't solely looking at language, but more so the psychology of Black students when they're in these spaces and the language practices that they use. And I was really interested in that because I've always felt this dichotomy or this duality. E.B. Du Bois talks about, or W.E.B. Du Bois talks about the dual consciousness. And I actually use this framework called the Triple Quandary. And I'm not going to take too much time, but just to let you all understand, the Triple Quandary by A. Boykin states that Black folks experience 3 different types of experiences that converge upon each other. So there's the mainstream experience, which says that the values that are taken upon or that are placed upon folks who operate within the society. Then there's the minority experience of being marginalized and oppressed within society. And then there's a Black cultural experience, which is the practices that are maintained or retained from the motherland. And so all 3 of these things converge upon each other to create a quandary, right? And so oftentimes, as I was going through this cohort, because of my temperament, I would see a lot of my colleagues jump out there and push the issue in a way that, again, my temperament just wasn't able to really communicate. I wasn't able, though, to come back oftentimes and report back in a sense what I think I was hearing from both sides, which worked out really well. But it also created this kind of safe Negro mentality for me at times, right? That challenged me. And the reason that I say that is because as I've gone through this program, it's not only kind of shaped who I am as a leader, but also helped me to really reflect upon my own identity, right? And when Charles talks about it, and when so many of us have talked about this academy doesn't love us, that's that triple quandary, at least for me, that's oftentimes at work, right? This thing that we have to constantly battle and struggle with. So I'm extremely, extremely grateful for the Distinguished Award, but also recognize that there may be so many others who deserve it, who just don't necessarily have the same temperament or same way of communicating as I do that maybe isn't as favorable, right? And I have to be aware of that and understand that. And I think learning to appreciate both the acknowledgement and still also recognize where the trouble lies in that, right? And I think that as an educational leader, that's one of the main things that I want to continue to seek to understand and address for so many of my students, right? My study was able to look at that as it pertains to language, but there's so many other issues where that comes to play. And so I definitely am grateful for this opportunity to be able to study with so many amazing leaders who were able to push me in my thinking, in my understanding, right, around these things. Grateful for the opportunity to be able to reflect, to be able to understand kind of where I sit, who I am, continue to go through that process, but also just become more comfortable in who I am and what my educational leadership style looks like. And I'm challenging both our cohort and anybody else who may be in education or work with those who are in need to really understand that it's not just about the quote-unquote grade, as Dr. Cooks said, but really how is it that our students are showing up and how do we meet them and understand not just what they're doing, but what is the psychology behind that. Because for us as Black students, and I think I could speak for most of us here in this program, there's so much more at play than just not liking things that were happening or not wanting to do this or it just being hard. But there are historical factors that are at play that we have to constantly be reminded about. And so that's really what this program has allowed for me to really sit with and wrestle with and continue to think about so that I can continue to do the work that I need to do in my community. And I believe the same for all of our other cohort members as well. So thank you all for being here and thank you for this night. And I'm tripping because I was ready to get off stage, but I have to introduce, and actually this is very much a pleasure to be able to introduce Dr. Marilyn Jones to the stage. Please come up.
Thank you everybody for coming. Oh, I'm very emotional right now. Sorry. I love my cohort. First of all, I'm grateful because I didn't know how I was going to fit in when I came to be a doctor. Thank God I'm still me. I'm still me. My cohort, we fought against everything. We did, because I guess the academies don't expect it to be predominantly Black cohort, so they wasn't ready for us. Seriously, they were unprepared. But I want to say for 2 years straight, I read about research and white privilege and talked about all these. I'm going to name off all the names who they thought I was, and I'm going to tell you who I am. So underprivileged, disenfranchised, marginalized, non-conventional. These are all the names the research studies have for us. But it's a paradigm shift going on right now. You can look at who the doctors are. So we're going to change the language. That's what I challenge everybody to do, because it's racist. And dominant means superior. You are not superior over me. I was depressed for 2 years. Finally getting my joy back. Education is not supposed to kill joy. You know, I deserve to be happy and healthy. My mental health, I deserve to be in a good state of mind. I don't have to read, when we're talking about the depressing part, is because it's not telling the truth. How do you have all this beautiful cohort of color, I love you too, here, and with all the stuff we read, it doesn't match. The research hasn't caught up to what's happening right now. So the research is a few years behind. We're in a Trump administration. We have low tolerance right now, and white privilege, time is running out on that. We read it like it's omnipresent, and we have to deal with that. It's about a wrap. It's about over. That's why things are so out of control. That's how I know from my lifestyle. When things got really, really bad, something's about to be over. So we appreciate your help. We gonna have it. We got it from here, though. You know what I'm saying? We appreciate it. And I want to say they were so. If anybody knows me, thank God for giving me a whole nother chance at life. I'm gonna say that. You know, I'm gonna put it like this because I've been to prison. I've been a drug addict, you know? And there's a lot of women coming behind me that got the same traits. That's the only reason why I came here, was to kick this door down. So it's kicked down. We got some comeback queens in the building. Come on. They don't have to change their whole curriculum because I didn't kick this thing in. I don't need to be a doctor. I kicked it in for everybody else. So if I made you nervous, you about to be real nervous because about 100 coming behind me. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Dr. Carol Johnson-Williams.
Thank you, Dr. Marilyn, and everyone for coming out this beautiful day. I'm honored to be one of the speakers today, and I keep saying, I don't know why they selected me. Do you know why? So, first I have to give honor to God as well, and the ancestors, and family and friends and the village, the community, those who are seen and unseen. I used to, school every day, used to say, you know what, thank you for those who just prayed for us today. Well, I didn't even know that they prayed for us. Well, because we got through whatever it was, and we're still smiling and here together, that's a good thing. So thank you. We all need each other. So that's one of the main things that I've always known, been able to say, have taught, but really learned and went to a deeper space about how much we, humanity, need each other, right? So there are all of these forces that want to say we're separate because we're different. That you can't do this because you don't look this certain way, you don't talk this certain way, you don't believe this certain way, and I know what's going to happen to you because I think you're different. And we all really get to say, that's not the truth. We all really get to decide whether or not we are going to continue to just say, well, I'm at the center of my world, And you all are at the margins. But guess what? Even those at the margins get to look at that. They come from a view, or we come from a view, that provides a wider angle, right? So Sylvia Winters, a researcher, calls it alterity. And it is from the space of the margins, from the circumference of the circle, if you will, right, that you get to see a larger perspective of what's really going on. So those who are centered by the educational system, my colleague spoke about white supremacy, centering whiteness. Even if you are someone who is determined to be white, you get to step out of that center and get to see from a broader view. And I know that my colleagues, my cohort, they have done that. We wrestled with each other. We wrestled with the content that seeks to, whether it's intentional or not, marginalize people of color, people who build the country, who build the world, working class, lower income. That doesn't make one less human. So when we are looking at, when you get to this point in education and you say, my gosh, this is still the same. What is different? Then we get to say, you know what? I get to make this different. Okay, so I need to acknowledge, where's my mother? There she is. There are two women in here. That's my mom right there. She's waving. I was able, as a child, I was able to see two women who looked like me don a robe. My mother, when she graduated with her bachelor's and I was in high school, I said, oh, I better get on it. She went on for her master's degree. I saw my aunt, who's here, the Reverend Dr. Pauline Heslop. She's a pediatrician. I didn't know what the robe meant. I knew it was an important occasion. But I know that what I read in the research is not who we are. It is from the lens of a different centering, right? And an unwillingness or an unawareness to step out of that and step into somebody else's center. Yes? So I want to thank all of those, my father, who will be watching the live stream. He's in New York. My husband is here. My brother will be coming out. These are men who support intelligent, strong women. Okay. And support education, right? So these stories that we hear, we have to constantly ask, is that really true? Because the stories that we hear will have us believing that what we see and hear is the truth about our fellow human beings, our fellow God-created beings. And so, regardless of what you believe, that's what I believe. And so, there's a song that some of us might be familiar with. I am not going to sing. But it starts off with, I need you. You need me, right? We're all a part. It says God's body. We're all a part of this family, right? I love you. I need you to survive, right? I need you in order for me to survive and thrive. And I need you to be able to not just survive, but you need to thrive. And so when we come to the research with that perspective, when we come to education with that perspective, when we come to life with that perspective, that we need each other, right? Then we can really look to what is it that we are truly seeking to create, right? Rather than looking at what has been the problem and replicating that intentionally and unintentionally. The results will still be the same. So when we intentionally seek to shift the outcomes, to break down these stereotypes, to look for what is the capital T truth, then we can say, yeah, you may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies, but still, like dust, I'll rise.
Sorry, and Kara, I hope this does not ruin that amazing speech, but she said strong, intelligent black women, and I would be absolutely remiss if I did not shout out my grandma, who was also watching from the live stream, Miss Nancy Windsor. We call her Grandy. I love you. You are one of the biggest supports. My dissertation was dedicated to her, but I had to call her by name as well, so I love you, Grandy.
We turn now to the hooding of our graduates. Our first graduate to be honored is Ana Maria Barrera. Her dissertation chair, Dr. Graciela Orozco, will speak on her behalf. If you could both come up to the stage.
Good afternoon. Muy buenas tardes. Quisiera empezar reconociendo a la familia de Ana María Barrera. Si pudieran saludar. Wow. Thank you. Y voy a decir unas cuantas palabras acerca del estudio que ha hecho Ana María. It's been my great pleasure to work with Ana María. She has chosen to do research on a population that is very little researched. And so in that sense, looking at a very vulnerable population, undocumented students in higher education, her study is very significant. Her study is titled Testimonios, or Testimonies of Undocumented Students in Higher Education. She used a Latina feminist phenomenology framework for her study, and she collected personal testimonies from 5 undocumented students in order to understand their experiences navigating higher education in the United States. So students shared with her the challenges of being undocumented, the pressure of having to keep their status a secret, and how even in higher education, they continue to live in the shadows because often they do not find the resources, the kind of support that they need in order to be successful. So she collected stories about, the fear of deportation, the anxiety, the psychological stressors, and it was a very emotional data collection. At the same time, she also found stories of resilience and what it is that has helped these students to move ahead. And what she found is that community like this one is such an important part of being successful and making it in higher education. She also found that students were motivated when they are undocumented. They are motivated to become civically engaged, and it is in that process of finding their own political voice that they discover that they really do have the strength, they are able to make contributions to society, and that they can, continue on with their education. So I really want to congratulate Ana María Barrera for such an excellent and significant study. Muchas felicidades, Ana María.
I now want to introduce Dr. Charles Lavon Cole III and his committee member, Dr. Cooks.
As Charles comes up, y'all didn't know you were gonna get a social justice and equity lesson today, did you? With these speakers, and I was sitting. I have to admit, I was sitting over there like proud. I'm not gonna say Papa, but very, very proud and overwhelmed because I've had an opportunity to work with all 5 of those speakers, and for them to for me to be able to have just a little bit to do with helping shape who they've become as scholars is just pretty good. It's pretty good. And so when you talk about social justice and equity, one of the pillars of of the program is social justice and equity. And as faculty, as a program, and even as students in the class, we would oftentimes have a conversation about what is social justice, what is equity, for who, right? Who is that going to benefit? And what does that look like? And how do we do that? And so I think part of what you have heard today is this push-pull about social justice and equity. Because the only way to be able to make shifts or changes in the academy is to push back, yes? And we know that change for anyone is challenging, change is uncomfortable, but as I say with some of the student athletes that I work with is that we have to get to a point to where we're comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so I think that leads directly into Charles, and as a student, as a scholar, as a man, he came in very, very, very solid in terms of his ideas about what needs to happen, and that this research thing, he made it very clear. It was nothing. It was nothing about trying to move up a ladder, trying to make somebody happy, trying to get some pixie dust and then turn into, Mr. Big Doctor. It was very personal. It was a very, very personal journey and a very personal process, not only for him individually, but for his community and for the young men in his study. I didn't share this with him, but I've probably, out of this group, this will be, I think I would have been the chair or served on at least 20 some odd committees. And this was the first one that I almost, I'm a dude, right? I almost got choked up. And I almost got choked up because not only the passion in which Charles talked about his information, but the idea about being a young African-American man, boy, trying to bump your head, trying to figure it out, trying to have, just ultimately wanting love and some direction and somebody to pull him up and say it's going to be all right. And so Charles's dissertation entitled How Black Men Impacted by the Crack Epidemic Succeeded Against the Odds to Obtain Doctoral Degrees. The dissertation chair, Sean Jenwright, myself, and Brian Stanley, I would definitely say that in terms of case studies and in terms of richness and details in terms of life and what it means in terms of the education system, these are the young men that we got to make it better for, straight up. The system has to include spaces for these young men, and I think Charles's work and continued work in publishing, right, because that's how you change the system, right? If we're mad about what we're reading, you got to write something to say something different. So, right, so I'm pushing you and challenging you. If you're mad about it, write about it. If you're mad about it and you want to change it, then you got to push it because you can't read something that's not there. And all of you all have the information to be able to put there. So, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Dr. Charles Lavon Cole III.
I now want to introduce Dr. Tabitha Page Conaway, and we're going to invite Dr. Jamal Cooks up here again.
So, I think it was maybe it might have been the second or third class that I working with the cohort, and I remember having a conversation with another instructor, and we were that's kind of what instructors do. We kind of, whether you know it or not, we kind of go around and we're like, oh, well, what about so and so? What about so and so? And they asked me, so what do you think about Tabitha? I was just like, firecracker. She just, we better be ready. You better be ready if you're going to have a conversation with her, if you're going to talk social justice equity, if you're going to talk about what students need, if you're going to talk about students of color, you better be ready. And Tabitha has not disappointed. She came in and said that she wanted to do some work around students at community colleges. We had many conversations. The folks that have worked with me know that I have a favorite Starbucks. That's where I hold office hours, and they all know hey, you want to find me? Let's go over on Dudden, and we'll hash it out for a couple of hours. And Tabitha has been willing to come to Starbucks, to Chabot, she wherever. She like, I need to talk to you, and I need to see you eye to eye, and I need to have your full attention, because she knows I might, if I'm on a computer or if I'm talking to someone, she's like, no, I need this, right? And I think I think her hard work has definitely paid off. Their dissertation title, You Gotta Care. Let me make sure I say that again. You Gotta Care. Hearing the stories of previously incarcerated youth in community colleges. I served as the chair, George Grainer as a committee member, and David Johnson, who is a VP of Instruction at Merit. We came together and talked with Tabitha, and I think that I'm very excited to see what the future holds for her. I'm excited to see where, once earning this doctorate, gets her in terms of the career ladder. I think she is very, very capable and in a good position when she begins to apply for deanships. I think she will be ready. And I think it's not only because of the work that she did here, it's not only because of her research, but it's also because of just who she is and who she came in as and who she's leaving as. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Dr. Tabitha Paige Conaway.
All right. You're going to top that one, Cheryl. I want to welcome Cheryl Calvalis-Doolan and her dissertation chair, Dr. Marcel Santos.
Hello. I want you to raise your hand if you like writing. I want you to raise your hand if you've ever had a moment in your life where you're like, I would rather mow the lawn than write an essay. And now I want you to raise your hand if you can remember an English teacher who made a difference in your life. Those sensations, all three of them, is what this dissertation signifies in this world today. Cheryl Calvalis-Doolan's dissertation is both important to me because I train English writing teachers, and so they're going to try and compete for the job that she will exit when she is one day department chair. But I often, when I attend graduation at the end of this week with my own English writing teachers, I wonder, we have given you great tools, but will you get a job? We have inspired you with the pedagogical resources, but will you be one of those professors who is sleeping in his or her car? that is written up in the news. It is not an easy world to be a writing teacher these days. And now I need to ask you, do you know what your writing teacher did for you for many, many hours, grading your essays, meeting you during office hours? This is also what this dissertation is about. Let me tell you the official title: Equity-Oriented Instructor Perspectives on Teaching Developmental English in the Community College. I have she doesn't know this, but my secret title for this dissertation is The Invisible Work of Writing Teachers. Cheryl is asking groups of writing teachers who self-identify as equity-oriented. They believe in the social justice mission you have heard about all today. And yet, they have to translate those beliefs into writing practice. How many hours will they spend reading that stack of 30 papers? How will they convey that this paper has many grammar mistakes but preserve relationship? How will they correct someone's thesis and not undermine someone's personal mission that gets expressed in an essay? That is a skill set that is not only grounded in years of training, but you have to know yourself. You have to know how you sound to students who don't believe themselves to be writers. There's this wonderful line in her writing where Cheryl writes, "It's English instructors who value equity who will likely approach the teaching and writing in ways that support students who need the most help. The students that are the easiest to reach are those who show up to class, who are vocal, and who attend office hours, and who show initiative in their class engagement. However, these, and this is the part that gets me because I know these students, these vocal students are often not the ones in class who have experienced the greatest educational inequity." And so I know Cheryl is drowning in data right now, having talked to many teachers, and that's because it's a sign that it's not the right to speak that often matters in teaching, it's the right to impose listening on others. And I didn't make that up. That came from a very famous scholar. I'll take credit, Bourdieu. But thank you, Cheryl, for giving voice to writing teachers. I hope the dissertation takes the form of newspaper articles, op-eds, so that the state of California knows the work that happens behind closed doors in our writing departments. If you've never tried on one of these, try one on. It's the balance between being a Jedi warrior and your bathrobe. And that is what being a doctoral student, the experience represents. It's somewhere between preserving the force of this universe and the everyday. Congratulations on being a mom. You've inspired me in the work. She did this dissertation in the middle of the Santa Rosa fires. You know that's an incredible achievement. Congratulations on behalf of your committee, Professor Roberge, Professor Fun. Congratulations, Cheryl Cavalis-Doolin.
We are now turning to honor Samuelisa Enright and her dissertation chair, Dr. Sheldon Jen.
Stand right there while I talk about you. Samuelisa Enright is a leader in the early childhood education world, where she has observed the continued use of exclusionary discipline. We're talking about suspension and expulsion, which are usually or can be the first step really in the school to prison pipeline. And so she asked this question: what are early childhood leaders' views and attitudes towards approaches to preschool discipline and what approaches do ECE leaders utilize to reduce and prevent preschool expulsion and increase equitable outcomes. And Sammy and Lisa is using a different methodology for this research. It's Q methodology. It's a very niche method, and I think it's going to be the first dissertation out of this program that uses Q methodology. So very happy about that. And she is on track to graduate this summer, which is fantastic. And I'll have to also say that she is a founding member of the not-so-secret society called Get It Done. And this is a group of about 6 scholars who are meeting about 4 hours a week to write in each other's presence and in silence. And so when you talk about the love of writing, I would say the Get It Done group is learning to love writing. Congratulations, Samuel Lisa.
We turn now to honor Dr. Landon Hill and his dissertation chair, Dr. Jamal Cooks.
All right. Cameron, the same 7-year-old, he's still 7. We had a conversation yesterday about that, that he has to make sure that he understands that someone is always watching, and that someone always watching means whether that's because of just him being a young man, whether it's because he's my son, coach, doctor, so on. So just you're going to always be watched, and you need to know that there's always eyes on you. And so Landon alluded to it a little earlier that I had never even had a conversation with Landon. I knew with the high school that he went to, I knew people that went to that were parents of kids that went to school with him. We did go to the same church, and so I would see him from afar. And so, you know, I knew the family. I knew that he handled his business. He got great grades. Then he went away to school, right? Still watching, still looking, still listening. And then, and I don't remember if it was your dad or you, somehow we began to talk about next moves and talking about the master's program and the like. And so if any of you have ever been mentors, you'll know that you have to be kind of selfish with your time and who you do mentor. Does that kind of make sense? Right, you can't just mentor everybody, right? So I'm kind of having this conversation, trying to fill it out like, well, yeah, okay, yeah, he's cool. He got a good head on his shoulder, okay. So we talked then. And then we talked about joining a fraternity, and we had that conversation. And then I don't know if I told you were going to apply to the program, or I don't remember. I think I did tell him he was going to. I said, hey, just apply to the program, you know, and if you get in, then we'll figure it out from there. He got in, and then we figured it out. And then who's going to be your chair? Okay, I'm going to be your chair. And so this whole thing of working with Landon throughout the years has been great, because there's a lot of I see a lot of myself in being young and idealistic and high energy and just wanting to make moves. Working at EOYDC in East Oakland, that's not a glamorous piece, right? On East 14th Street in East Oakland is not the Ivory White Tower. It is day to day, rolling your sleeves up, working with kids, and helping people get what they need to be able to be successful. And so as I was sitting here thinking about this part of the conversation, I'm gonna make sure I go home and tell Cameron about this, that the idea is that I probably wouldn't have worked with Landon if I wasn't continually watching him, if he wasn't always had high standards, if he wasn't always taking care of business while watching him. And that's a testament to him and his family in terms of his ethics and his morals and his values. And I think that's the nexus between who he is as a family man and as a professional, and the work with his research. And his research was rethinking the language rules, the educational and psychological impacts of African American students, navigating various language practices. I served as his chair along with George Greener and Nolan Jones, both who spent lots of time going through the work with him. And I'm hoping that definitely some of these chapters will be sliced off and written as articles. And it gives me great pleasure to present to you, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Landon Hill.
We turn now to Alexander Jones and his dissertation chair, Dr. Sheldon Jen.
Alex's research stems from his profession in both the CSU system and the community college system, where he links aspiring students to their professions after college. And his dissertation notes that most Californians go to college to do so to develop their careers, but many college graduates struggle to gain employment that utilizes their degrees. And part of that problem is tied to the dimensions of employability that lie outside the academic curriculum, such as developing soft skills, networking, and engaging in other co-curricular activities that are often offered by campus career centers. And so his research question is, what career services are utilized by university students that lead to their employability after graduation? And Alex's data collection is through a massive survey that has gone live about a week ago. He's sampling 8,000 recent graduates of the CSU system, and he is in the depths of analyzing those data now. And he's on track to graduate this summer. And Alex also is a founding member of the Get It Done writing group. So congratulations, Alex.
We turn now to celebrate Dr. Marilyn Denise Jones and her dissertation chair, Dr. Jamal Cooks.
You want to just look at each other and talk? You want to? So I remember Marilyn coming to the interview. I remember her interview. And I remember when she probably answered the first question, I was like, oh, this sister is nervous. She is nervous. Okay, all right. And so we continue to ask questions. We do group interviews, and so everyone went around the room and answered. And so when it came time to work with Marilyn, I was very clear, and you can kind of see from the personalities in our cohort, you got to be strong to work with. You got to be strong to be able to be dissertation chairs, particularly with folks in this group. And so I think with Marilyn, what I wanted to make sure that I attempted to do was to just be even keel as possible, was to just stay right here, because I knew that there would be times when she would be very excited, like when she did her interviews and she's talking to all the folks and she got the data juiced. And there were going to be other times when she might be a little frustrated. She might, I don't get this. I don't want to do that. Dr. Jamal, I'm out. And I will say, sometimes these relationships get very personal. And Marilyn knew she could call me or text me at any time. And she did. And she did. I could wake up at 4 and have texts. I could go to bed at 9 or 10, and she would have hit me around midnight and anything in between. But here's the biggest piece. I had no problem with that because I knew that the work that she was doing was A, important. I knew that B, that it meant a whole lot to her. And C, that once she was finished and able to share this information, it was going to be transformative. So at the end of the day, hey, whenever Marilyn needed something, I attempted to be there. I tried to give the resources and even had the opportunity to be able to work with her for about 10 months at Chabot as well with our RISE program. And I think what ends up happening is that, and I'm going to say this, I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to say thank you for always keeping it real. I'm going to say thank you for holding the program and professors accountable. And I'm saying thank you to you for allowing me to be part of this journey. Because sometimes I know it didn't always feel like that people were thankful for it. And I'm saying we are thankful for it. We are thankful for your knowledge. We're thankful for your intellect. And we are thankful for your love. Dr. Marilyn Denise Jones, with a dissertation entitled The Comeback Queens, Understanding Black Women's Transition from Incarceration to Higher Education. I served as the dissertation chair, George Bergreener, and Robin Fisher. I saw Robin somewhere over here. Robin, where's your? And Robin Fisher in supporting her through this. And I'm just telling you, I'm very, very proud of you, and I'm excited to see what the next steps are. Dr. Marilyn Denise Jones.
We turn now to Mary Jennifer Reynolds. And Dr. Reynolds' dissertation chair, Dr. Stephanie Sisk-Hilton.
So something you'll learn very quickly about Mary if you have a conversation with her is that she loves math. And her face lights up when she starts talking about math and math learning. And that is not always what happens with elementary school principals and teachers and math. And so in Mary's work, she knew she wanted to center it around math. And she identified a group whose voices she never saw in the literature or just in the larger world when talking about math. And that was the voices of elementary school girls. There's plenty written about them, but there's not much that's written in their voice. And so that is what Mary's research worked to change. Throughout her study, she kept that focus laser sharp. She did not center the teachers. She didn't center the curriculum. She didn't center the schools. She knew about all that stuff, but she centered the kids whose voices needed to be heard about the experiences they were having in elementary school math classrooms. Her study contributes a much needed, I think, change in how we talk about girls' experiences in math and what we do next to begin to change that in response to what they say they need and want. And I'll also say at a personal level, I'm getting all teary, Mary. The day she defended, I asked her to send me her PowerPoint, which I then delivered to my 11-year-old daughter, who said to me, gosh, I really like that your students are studying things that matter, and I wish she was my math teacher. High praise. So, congratulations, Dr. Reynolds. Her dissertation's title is Supporting Girls Toward Development of Positive Mathematical Identity, and her committee also had Dr. Eric Sue and Dr. Patrick Callahan. Congratulations.
Our next candidate is Andrea Robinson. Her dissertation chair is also Dr. Stephanie Sisk-Hilton.
It's not good to make me speak twice in a row. All right. So, DeAndrea is an amazing example of a scholar activist. She is somebody who saw something that needed to be done differently, and she went and did it. She didn't just study it, she changed it. And so through her research, she has designed and piloted a program that is aimed at helping Black girls in upper elementary school engage in a literacy curriculum that is about them and about their history and their culture and their identity. She, in the midst of doing all this, she became a principal of not one but two schools at the same time. And she got a grant to support her work and partnered with, is it Boys and Girls Club? With the Boys and Girls Club of San Francisco. Meanwhile, she's analyzing a whole lot of data. She is not somebody who is separating her professional world from her research world. She is changing the world. And one of the things I really want to acknowledge about DeAndrea's work is her artistry. And I'm not sure if that's how she thinks about herself, but her writing and the way that she conceptualizes the problem of practice that she is taking up has a deep level of artistry to it. She writes in a way that brings together ideas from all over the place to bring you to her point and her argument. And you see the same artistry in the program that she has developed for young girls. One example I'll give was she came in the other day and just brought, I don't even know how she got it all in my office. She just brought all of this stuff that she had done with kids over the course of several months. And the one that really gripped me, although it was a fairly small activity I think that she did, were these selfie mirrors, where she had each kid take a mirror and look at themselves while they wrote messages to themselves on that mirror to look at and talk. And there were many times when she was doing this where we would have meetings and she'd be like, it is not going well. This program is not working at all. I don't know, the girls don't want to be there, they're resisting, they don't like, and then by the end, it had worked because she had gone out there and done the work that needed to be done. So she is very nearly finished. Going to be finished in a minute. And great congratulations to you. Did I even say the title of your study? I think I did not. The title of DeAndrea's study is Queens Getting Lit, A Strategy for Keeping Urban Black Elementary School Girls in Public Education. And her committee also has Dr. Gregory Tanaka and Dr. Sharia Taylor. Congratulations.
I now would like to congratulate and welcome to the stage Mallory Jean Stevens and her dissertation chair, Dr. Sheldon Jen.
Mallory's profession lies at that delicate intersection of students' lives where they transition from high school to college. And so it's a place where dual enrollment has had a traditional role of being an opportunity for already high-performing high school students to get a jump start on college. But a recent law in California directs high schools and community colleges to reorient the program, to make it a program that promotes greater educational equity, not just for the students who are already performing highly. And so Mallory's research question asks, how are the legislative goals of AB 288 dual enrollment understood and externalized by leaders and by the frontline teachers and counselors in high schools and community colleges with the aim of redirecting this program? And Mallory is taking a multi-case method to examine this study. And she's completed her data collection, and she is on track to graduate in the summer. In fact, she has her defense scheduled for July 24th at noon. So defenses are public events, so if you ever want to know what a dissertation defense looks like and how one is expertly defended, I will see you at noon on July 24th in Burke Hall. Mallory is also one of our founding members of the Get It Done writing group. And, and I have to say, the true chair of her dissertation committee, I have to say, was really Mallory Stevens, because a typical interaction that she would have with me is she'll say, Sheldon, I'm run up against this roadblock. I don't know what to do. These are the problems I'm facing. I think I should do this, this, and this. And my response would be, yes. So if you want to hood yourself, I'm totally good with that. Congratulations, Mallory.
All right, we've reached the final student to honor today. It's Carol Johnson-Williams. Her dissertation chair is Dr. Jamal Cooks.
So Carol and I would have lots of conversations about public schools, about language and literacy. And then as we continued to talk, we started finding out that we knew some of the same educators, some of the same folks, and then that was another connection. And then we were talking about AAVE, I think, and then we were saying, oh, well, I know that person, and we made other connections. And there were times, to be honest with you, I never told her this, but that like I was just enjoying just the conversation of going down memory lane and talking about Oakland Public Schools and what we need to do and how we need to do it. And then I would say, oh, well, we should probably start talking about your dissertation now. And I think Carol comes with a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experience. Probably is very, very cerebral in terms of how she thinks and the way that she connects dots. Has a very even-keeled temperament. And I know there were a couple of times when we had cohort conversations with the program and with the cohort, and and I don't remember which one it was, but you know, people spoke and people had things to say. But when Carol raised her hand and started talking, I was like, oh, we better sit back and watch this, right? Because she's very thoughtful with her ideas, very thoughtful with her with what she says and how she says it. Her work, I think, is going to be very, very transformative in terms of being able to contribute to what we need to do with educational leadership, specifically. Being in an educational leadership program, sometimes, unfortunately, we may miss the leadership piece. And so that's very, very important. And so Carol's dissertation is entitled Standing in the Gap, Black Women in Educational Leadership Through a Womanist Lens. I served as the chair, Dorothy Saruta as a committee member, and Evelyn Wesley is here as well. I will definitely say that at her proposal hearing, we were able to really take a deep dive into some real interesting ideas and topics, and this idea about what educational leaders need to keep in mind to be able to be the next generation of educational leaders, learning from existing ones across K-12, community college, and four-year levels, to then to be able to know what needs to be done next. And so I'm very happy to present to you Dr. Carol Johnson Williams.
I would now like to ask the 2019 graduating cohort to stand so we can give them a final round of applause and appreciation. Audience, if you can please remain until the faculty and the students and the graduates leave the auditorium, and then we'll see you as soon as we're done with our photo opportunities. Thank you. Congratulations.